Before there was a United States, there were nations, ancient civilizations stretching across mountains, plains, deserts, and forests. These were the Mississippians, the Puebloans, the Iroquois, the Cherokee, and countless others, each with their own rich languages, traditions, and ways of life. Imagine, in the river valleys of the Southeast, the Mississippians building sprawling cities like Cahokia, crowned with monumental earthen mounds. From atop these structures, leaders oversaw vast trade networks, shells from the Gulf, copper from the Great Lakes, and fine pottery from the Mississippi River basin all flowed through this bustling center of culture and commerce. Now, travel to the arid cliffs of the Southwest. Here, the Puebloans carved multi-story dwellings directly into stone, their walls glowing red under the desert sun. These homes and ceremonial kivas were marvels of engineering, perfectly aligned with the movements of the sun and stars, deeply connected to their spiritual life. In the dense forests of the Northeast, the Iroquois Confederacy, or Haudenosaunee, bound 5, and later 6, nations together with the Great Law of Peace. This was a remarkable political system that balanced unity with autonomy, and many historians believe its democratic principles would later echo in the founding ideals of the United States itself. And in the rolling Appalachian foothills, the Cherokee cultivated fertile land, wove intricate stories to carry their history forward, and navigated vast trade networks that connected them to communities far and wide. These peoples were not simply wanderers in a pristine wilderness. They were architects, astronomers, farmers, and diplomats. They were the stewards of a continent, actively shaping, tending, and honoring the forests, rivers, and plains. The story of America doesn't begin in 1776. It begins here, thousands of years before, in the civilizations that came first. Then, a new world collided with the old. In 1492, Christopher Columbus reached the Caribbean, a moment that is often marked as the start of European exploration in the Americas, but he wasn't the first. Norse explorers had already reached parts of North America centuries earlier, following Columbus. The floodgates opened by the early 1500s. Spanish conquistadors like Ponce de Leon and Hernan Cortés were claiming vast territories for the Spanish crown. The French explored the Great Mississippi and St. Lawrence rivers, establishing trade posts deep in the continent's interior. The Dutch set up colonies along the Hudson River, creating a hub of commerce that would become New York. And in 1607, the English founded Jamestown, Virginia. It was a difficult, brutal beginning, but it became the first permanent English settlement in the land that would one day become the United States. This rival of different European powers set the stage for a dramatic and often violent competition for control of North America over the next century and a half. 13 distinct English colonies took root along the Atlantic coast. They were magnets for people seeking opportunity and those fleeing persecution. They were places of immense hope and incredible hardship, shaped by a diverse mix of European settlers and enslaved Africans brought here against their will, and the enduring resilience of native peoples. Colonial life was a whirlwind of activity. Trade boomed, connecting small port towns to a global network. Religious diversity flourished in places like Pennsylvania and Rhode Island, offering havens for groups that weren't welcome elsewhere. The frontier was constantly pushing westward, creating both new communities and new conflicts, but this expansion came at a devastating cost: European diseases, to which indigenous populations had no immunity, swept through communities, causing catastrophic loss of life. Skirmishes and outright wars over land and resources became a constant feature of colonial life. And even as the colonies grew and prospered, they remained politically and economically tethered to Great Britain, an ocean away. By the mid-1700s, the relationship between Britain and its American colonies began to fray. Britain was deep in debt after the costly French and Indian War, a conflict that had secured its dominance in North America. To pay off that debt, Parliament decided to impose new taxes on the colonies. First came the Stamp Act, then the Townshend Acts, and later the Tea Act. But it wasn't just about the money. The colonists were outraged because these taxes were being levied without their consent. They had no representatives in the British Parliament to speak for them. The cry "no taxation without representation" became a powerful rallying call that united merchants in Boston, farmers in Virginia, and artisans in Philadelphia. Tensions escalated. In 1770, a street brawl between colonists and British soldiers erupted into the Boston Massacre, leaving 5 civilians dead and fueling anti-British sentiment. In 1773, a group of colonists disguised as Native Americans boarded British ships in Boston Harbor and dumped hundreds of chests of tea into the water. This act of defiance, known as the Boston Tea Party, was a direct challenge to British authority. The path to revolution was becoming clear, and the crisp morning air of April 1775. Shots rang out at Lexington and Concord, Massachusetts. This was it, the spark that ignited the American Revolution. What started as a protest had become a war for independence. A ragtag army of colonial militias, farmers, and tradesmen found themselves facing the might of the British Empire, the most powerful military force in the world. Led by General George Washington, the Continental Army endured brutal winters, devastating losses, and constant shortages. Yet, they persevered. On July 4, 1776, a date now etched into American identity, the Second Continental Congress adopted the Declaration of Independence. Penned primarily by Thomas Jefferson, this revolutionary document declared that the 13 colonies were now free and independent states. It laid out a radical vision of government based on the idea that all men are created equal and have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. After 8 long and arduous years of war, with crucial support from allies like France, the unimaginable happened. The British surrendered at Yorktown in 1781. The Treaty of Paris, signed in 1783, officially recognized the United States of America as a new, independent nation. The war was over, but the great, fragile experiment in self-government had just begun. Thanks for watching. If you found this journey through history interesting, be sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more stories about the past. We'll see you in the next one.